After so many wrote them off at stages in 2025, Flyers Pies went all the way to a prelim, falling to the eventual premier Brisbane. Going again with its ageing stars in Pendlebury, Sidebottom and Howe, does this group have one last big push in them? Or will age finally catch up in 2026? Season 2025, it's as close as I can remember it, certainly in recent years. I think there was a couple of games or 3 games between second and ninth.
Yeah.
When you review the season, you review your performance, where did that sort of sit across the off-season?
Yeah, we tend to let the season go and then come back with a different mindset. 8 weeks later, 6 weeks later, whatever it is, and go, let's review it now. So then we've got a bit of the emotion out of the clearly didn't get what we wanted at the end. No, it was a successful year. Like, you have, I think, 17 wins. If you said now we have 17 wins at 26, we'd take that every day of the week. So there's patches like, I think we were 14-2 at one stage, travelling pretty well and doing a lot right. So for most of the year, there was a lot of things we did well, and then the competition shifted, the second half of the year through things we review, but I'll keep some of that privately. But it's a hard competition to stay at the top for a long time. I think we review it as a success, as a collective view.
Well, no, it wants to go 12 points down and, stuff that's effectively out of your control, so you can certainly look at it glass half full.
Well, we tend to live in that space mostly anyway, but you get to a prelim final in front of half-time, it suggests you're doing a fair bit right. But we all know that if it's a Grand Prix, you don't start at the front of the grid now. Brisbane don't start. They at pole position. We all start on the grid somewhere. We're going to qualify again, so got to get to work.
How much of the off-season, I'd imagine, during the season, you don't get much time to look at others or dissect other teams in a really in-depth way. Brisbane now back-to-back premiers.
Yeah.
Have you studied them much? Have you seen the trends of the game, especially, as you say, second half of the season?
Yeah.
And trying to implement some of that with your own...
Yeah, I think the first step is to always look inwards, like whether that's my own performances or our coaching performances, and then you get all the data and you reflect on yourselves. And I think the season, as a collective, stay there for now. There's it just changes. It's not the same from round 0 to the end. It's never the same. And we were an evolution of that ourselves. So you learn the lessons along the way. I think if you go into the season with, this is what we're going to do at certain times, but then you start to see trends, like, the way Brisbane just beat us up at stoppage, critical moments, particularly that prelim final, just, had 5 or 6 minutes and the game just shifted. Like, that's the game now. You think the Bulldogs don't make the finals and they're one of the most attacking teams in the competition, so there's a lot to learn from them too. You keep looking at who's doing things well and ask questions why.
Is that the challenge as a coach, the balance with seeing what teams are doing well, looking at the personnel that you have and trying to find what works for you?
Yeah, we've always liked to think that there's a certain identity when you put our jumper on, so we live by that first. We have a strong identity for our fans. In particular, I think, if anything, we want to be fun to watch and we want the game to be fun to play for our players, so we keep coming back to those things.
When you say fun to watch, the speed of play looks like it's increasing, and certainly what the AFL have introduced this year, the tightening of the man on the mark, the boundary throw-ins. Do you see the game getting quicker?
Yeah, well, we have umpires come to train and I ask them all the time, what did you see there? I saw this at Sydney. I say, what did you see there? So, the trends...
Great source.
Yeah, the trends say that most people are training faster. That's just the offensive part of it. But you'd like to think that the scoring may be a bit increased early through the speed of ball movement. It'll be interesting how that plays out. There's always a levelling out. I think you go at a speed where you can defend as well, so there has to be a balance of that.
No doubt at some point, and this question will annoy you, the age of the list will come up.
We're younger this year, aren't
we? Younger this year?
I think so we are.
Well, there you go.
Well,
we'll get that out there.
Oh, well, we're Tom Mitchell and Will Hoskett-Elliott and Myercheck and Mason Cox and, Oleg Markov, they're no longer with us, and we really loved what they brought to the table. There's an evolution of everybody. Doesn't it make us younger?
I think it does. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. You get young kids in who are 18.
I think there's a balance of it. We have no ceilings. That's reality. We've had no ceilings for the last 4 or 5 years on what we're doing, and we live in a growth mindset, and why can't we get better with age? Pendles are doing PBs in the gym. What a great role model for 18-year-old kids coming in and learning off guys like Steele and Howie, and we don't put ceilings on things.
What conversations, I know when I was coming towards the back end of my career, there's certainly conversations around there may be a point this year or next year where that you have to forego your position for the younger kids coming through and trying to get them experience to come through? Do you have those conversations with those guys?
Yeah, I speak regularly with Steele and Howie and Pendles, if you want to use those three as an example. I caught up with Pendles only on Friday and just talked about how you're feeling, because he can articulate his own plan so well, and sort of just get on the same page. And my performance is the ultimate. When you're not performing, then there's always going to be question marks. But up until now, these guys have always performed at such a high level, and we support that.
A big occasion this year will be Scott's game-breaking milestone. I think it lands, if everything goes well, on a Friday night against Hawthorn. There's probably not much that you can say that you haven't said already, but when you look forward to that milestone, what do you think of?
I just think a guy is just so well-rounded in the way he sees the game. He's such an asset for us as coaches to be able to articulate what's needed or get a mood for the group, where's the game going. Probably the biggest memory I have of Pendles is just the father he is now. I like to see him with his kids at the footy clubs, the evolution of that from when I saw him as a development coach, now as a senior coach, the growth in him. Yeah, remarkable player. Where do you see him playing this year? Will it be more at halfback? Well, I'd like to think... Wherever you need him? I actually... Yeah, wherever the game needs us at times. And again, I think where the game goes against certain oppositions, what do we need here? Where do we need Pendles' experience against this team? Or do we need to defend certain parts of the ground? Or I think there's an evolution of Pendles as well. There has to be. He's played sort of pretty much in the middle of the ground for us for a long time, but I think we can put him in other positions this year. Yeah. Great asset on the field. You've had some inclusions off the field, and you speak about quality humans. Dyson Heppel is certainly one of those. So to get him in a development position, but also to try and upskill these youngsters coming through must have been a handy phone call. Yeah, and he's got a relationship with Hayden Skipworth, and then we've got Greg Stafford over from Melbourne to be a ruck coach. Just these guys with this experience, and you can't buy that. Tyson Goldsack's come across, Matty Egan's come across from Adelaide, and they've got great experience in other clubs, and naive to think you're doing everything right. So to get other IPs is important, but also quality characters and humans around our young players is enormous. When you look at the side that you've got on paper, are you expecting many positional changes in and around the team? Yeah. Someone like Dan Houston, how's his pre-season gone, and where does he seem most comfortable? Yeah, Dan's had a hip operation that's sort of hung around a little bit. But we want to evolve. I think one of our great strengths is our flexibility. We've got players who can play multiple positions. We've got Harry Perriman who can easily go in the midfield when we need him. Josh Dacos is an obvious one that you think will play a bit more mid-time. Multiple players around the edges of the square can play through the midfield. I like to think that is a progression of us. Yeah. Has that been your philosophy all the way through, and having certain levers to be able to be pulled? Again, you learn off other teams. I think back to Brisbane, when Lachie Neale got injured late in the year, they just saw a different version of Brisbane. It actually was... I'd seen Zach Bailey go through the midfield and these other players go through there. I thought, that's a nice version if you can do it. And I do think we've got the scope to do that at times. When your head hits the pillow at night, you've got mids, forwards and backs. There's been some change in that forward line. The story's been well written about Bobby. Mycheck goes out. Is that the line that probably keeps you up at night? Oh, no. Actually, the opposite, to be honest. We talk often about a system scores the goals. It's a Collingwood goal, not a Collingwood person kicking the goal, and we reward that all the time. And so we've got players that can play those positions. They just go, well, you just need to run the patterns and we'll score. That's been our story for 3 or 4 years. Jamie was an exception last year, kicked 60-odd goals, and we haven't had that before, and we haven't needed that before. So ideally we have the same philosophy this year, that our team will score the goals and we'll defend the ground well. You sit here now, how have you seen the pre-season in its entirety? You've had a few soft tissue injuries that have happened along the way. Do you sit here relatively comfortable on the eve of your 4th season as coach? It's into the 5th season. Yeah. But no, well, I don't think you'd ever be comfortable until you start competing. How do you feel this time of the year? It's just different, because you're in preparation mode. Yeah. There's a distinct difference between preparation mode and performance mode. Yeah. There is. We're in a wins and loss industry. We get that. We're here to high perform. But there's always an uncertainty of knowing what you're up against. Even I look back to last pre-season, I thought we were in really, really good shape, and then round 0 gives you a wake up. Still got nightmares of King is looking at me at the boundary line.
Round 0 this year.
But you learn lessons. The last couple of years, I think we've learned some really good lessons, and I'm only bringing that to match committee this week. I remember we lost that game in the pre-season, this is why, and remember we lost that game in the early rounds, remember this was why, and so keep reminding yourself the lessons you learn, and hopefully it stands you in good stead.
A new introduction this year is the wildcard weekend.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, the Bulldogs finished 9th last year. You think they would have beaten a few teams, wouldn't they? So the competition's so even. I think we finished 9th the year before. We had belief that we were heading in the right direction. Long way from 9 and 10 to make it really deep. But I don't think I think any time that you get a chance to play finals, 9 or 10 is probably hard to think you're going to win it from there. But time will tell.
Yep.
Good for the game. Well, time will tell as well.
Yep. There's a couple of rule changes this year. I think there's 8 in total. The sub rule is finally gone, which is I'm sure you're happy about. The last disposal rule.
Yeah.
Trained it. How have you felt?
Yeah, we've got some clarity around the umpires coming down and just making sure we get the details right of those things. We've got a couple of staff from Adelaide, like I said, Matty Egan and Tyson Goldsack with our East AFL. They've got some experience with us, so they share a couple of things around that. We've done a match committee around maybe exploring some of these things and what's the opportunities within them. Until we've lived it, there's a bit of a process to wait and see.
The standard rule, I think everyone's had experience in that, I would imagine, and it seemed to me when it first came in, the sides that really exploited that had some really big gains going forward.
Yeah, I was at Hawthorn when it first came in, and with Clarko we were really trying to speed the game up where you needed to, and again most teams have gone back to that. I've got my spies around the competition. Certainly it seems like the ball movement's somewhat being trained a bit faster. Again, we'll wait and see. It could be a lot of 50s early, not sure.
Brisbane back-to-back, they are the team that everybody wants to beat. No doubt you would sit here and say they are not invincible, which is absolutely right. But do they look like the team to beat this year again, do you think?
Oh, look, you probably think there's 5 or 6 teams already that you think, oh, geez, they're going to be hard to beat, just with improvement or list improvements. You have to admire what they've done the last couple of years. They're certainly a team that you want to aspire to be.
It's a great challenge. Good luck for season 2026.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you.